All right, we are back in open session and the board took no action in closed session. So let's do the flag salute and I'll ask Jan, the next president, to lead us.
Okay. I pledge allegiance
To
The flag
to the flag of the United States of America
and to
and
the republic
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible,
with liberty and
and
justice.
justice for all.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
Hear everyone doing it, it makes it a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next
Certainly
agenda
does.
item is to approve the agenda, and I would like to pull item 11E, F, and G off of consent just to discuss. And this is not a big, long, lengthy thing, at least from my point of view. But
Would you like to consider them all separate from one another?
yes,
You said B, F, and G?
E, F, and G. The
Oh, E, F, and G. Okay.
right. So if somebody would consider that, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, pulling those three items out to discussion action.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Number 9.
Number
Community
9.
and staff recognition.
Yes, this is our community staff recognition for the month of November. We're early in the month because of the way the meeting fell. We would normally have this meeting the following week, but we do want to recognize some very deserving employees who are November employees of the month. And so I'm going to start with our certificated employee of the month for the month of November, and that is actually 5 different people. This is our R.O. Hardin intervention team, and this group of employees has, as the board is well aware, done an extraordinary job of reshaping how children at that school are being served on a daily basis, and how the children at that school and how the teachers are all working together to reformat the way they teach. So I want to explain it to the community and to the board. So Kim Garcia, Christina Atkinson, Marianne Zuniga, and Nikki Bell work as a team with the administrators, our wonderful principal and assistant principal. And what they do is they coordinate every single teacher on that campus by grade level, so that for 1 hour a day, specifically for reading intervention, every single student is in a group that is carefully created to be able to help that child where their reading level is. So even if their teacher is Mr. Bernosky or their teacher is Mrs. Martinez, I, Mr. Ochoa, might have them in my reading group. One student from Mr. Bernosky and one student from Mrs. Martinez, because their reading levels are at the same level. So we want to group them together so we can give those children the instruction at the very level they need. And these 4 ladies, Kim and Christina and Marianne and Nikki, have just done an outstanding job of setting this whole system up. I think their coworkers at R.O. Hardin really value the way that they work with them. So they see their coworkers, their co-teachers in all of those classrooms as their equals and as their partners. And they've just created a wonderful learning environment at that school. And we are seeing substantial growth in academics at R.O. Hardin, as the board saw months ago and continues to hear about this year. So congratulations to our certificated staff. On the classified staff, Classified staff, I want to recognize Isaias Rivera. Isaias Rivera is one of the more well-known people in the district because he drives to every single campus, and people like him because he's always dropping things off that they want. So he's a warehouse delivery driver, and Isaias is being recognized because number one, he's highly professional. He knows what he is doing. He approaches his work at every single school, knowing that what he's taking to that school matters to the person that's receiving it. He's kind, he's honest, and he's just a wonderful example of how somebody comes to work, because during COVID, he has not missed work. I mean, this person has been on the spot whenever we have needed him, and we want to recognize Isaias for his genuine joy of approaching his work and also his professionalism. So Isaias Rivera is our classified staff of the month for November.
He's also a former student of mine.
I
could tell way back then he was going to be this way. He's quite a guy.
Steve, I could tell was that you were itching to tell us that he was your former student.
Yes, he one of my favorites.
And then our administrator of the month is Mr. Kip Ward. All of you know Mr. Ward. He is out here putting in work on a daily basis. Mr. Ward is, he's a friend to everyone at this district office. Mr. Ward is an extraordinary listener to his co-workers that are principals and directors, and Mr. Ward is somebody that I come to when I need to bounce ideas off. Mr. Ward is the kind of leader that knows who your children are, knows to ask how your parents are, knows to ask how you're doing. With all of the social emotional needs in the district, Mr. Ward is leading our plans to greatly improve social emotional supports for students and staff. He is also leading the charge in redesigning our school discipline policies district-wide. And he is just an indispensable member of the Hollister School District team. So he is our November Administrator of the Month.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Jan, so you have the public comments on non-agenda items teed up?
That's correct.
Okay.
The first one I have is from Brielle Duncan. To whom it may concern, good evening. I believe that the teachers are doing the best they can under the strange times we are under. Students are still trying to adapt to distance learning. My son utilizes intervention services from our home. I want to thank all Sierra Vista teachers and staff for trying their best. I believe our principal is making the right decision with regards to the safety of our students. Thank you for your time, a Sierra Vista parent. This is from Mariana and Johnny Alvarez Huang. To the Hollister School District Board of Trustees, Superintendent Ochoa, and members of the Executive Cabinet. I want to begin by extending gratitude and appreciation for all of your work and decision-making to keep our students and community safe thus far. I am a parent of 3 students in the Hollister School District. Lucas and Adelie are in kindergarten and 2nd grade at Sierra Vista. Ruth is a 7th grader at AAA. All 3 of my kids have had different experiences of school leading up to the COVID-19 closures, but all 3 have learned to make the most of this challenging time. The purpose of my public comment is to urge you to consider extending the current school closure beyond January 3rd. In this brief public comment, I cannot go into great detail to the nature of each of my children's individual health, and I imagine that the same thing can be said about the health of the members of our community. I understand that many families have concerns and arguments about distance learning and not working. And while I can understand that it is not like being in a traditional school setting, I disagree about it not being the most effective way to reach our students in a safe manner. Let's be realistic and realize that in a traditional school setting, we aim to engage 100% of our students 100% of the time. And a variety of state and local measures would tell us that we definitely fall short. When we think about the emotional well being of our students, the reality is that we have a high number of students that feel isolated at school as well. And we need to support them beyond what we've been offering. I feel that when we argue for sending students back to school, we don't realize that the students will be working in small groups or playing together on the playground. The school setting that our students will be entering when they return to campus will be much more sterile environment than the one they left on Friday, March 13th. I'm an educator, and I know there is no arguing that human contact and in person instruction can be replaced in the virtual setting. But we must continue to prioritize the health of staff and students. Our numbers are currently on the rise, and I believe that over the next 2 months will continue to rise. I also feel that the flu season is continuing to pose further complications with safety, bringing our community back without disruption to learning. I feel exploring solutions to the current challenges outside of the hybrid model would be more effective use of our time and less of an impact on the current model that so many teachers and leaders have worked to adapt. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. And now I have one that starts with hello. This is from Vanessa. I have a 5th grade student at Hollister Dual Language Academy. These last 8 months have been far from anything we ever expected. My daughter misses her social interaction at school with her peers and understands right now it's just not the safest time for that. She has found alternative ways of interacting with her friends, whether it's FaceTime call or Google Hangout. They connect, they laugh, and share stories. Although it isn't ideal, it is the best form of interaction at this time. With the flu season upon us, there is no reason for our children to be in a classroom, and sending them back in January would ultimately put them at risk. Although circumstances aren't ideal, the juggling between homes, work, and school has been quite a challenge. However, I prefer this struggle over jeopardizing my child's health. We have a mental health versus physical health debate at this point, and everyone is arguing which is more important. Our children are getting the education at home, and our teachers are working tirelessly to provide that. After everything our teachers have learned through this process and navigating this new distance learning module, sending teachers back without their say would be a complete disservice to our children. We need our teachers, and we need them to be healthy and safe for our children and for their own families. I hope that HESD school board considers children and their health and education first. As parents, we are responsible for our children's physical health and mental health, and it starts at home. Our schools are there to educate our children, and they have done a great job thus far. I hope you consider the opinions of many families who prefer to keep our schools closed for longer to keep our schools, our students, and staff safe when you make your decision. Thank you for your consideration and for your continued support for our teacher and student success. Vanessa Yinez, I hope I'm saying that correctly, HDLA parent. And this is from Tiana Guerrero. I am writing today to again ask you to consider opening our schools. Even if it's a hybrid manner, I know it can be done safely for everyone. Schools in the UK get to stay open even with them on a strict lockdown set upon them again. They consider education essential, and of course it is. Spring Grove, which does have almost 800 students, also has been doing well, and the students are happy to be back, even under strange circumstances. Our children deserve more than a laptop for 5 hours straight a day. I already had to take my son out of HDLA because he did not have the support needed to continue learning in 2 languages. This entire situation is causing so much damage educationally and emotionally to our children. Thank you for listening. This is from Megan Wubbles. Hello, all. My name is Megan Broadstreet, and my 7-year-old daughter, Savannah, attends Sarah Vista School. During distant learning, we have watched a year's worth of progress in regards to her autism deteriorate. She is one of many students struggling significantly due to not having contact with peers and her teacher. Please allow options for students to return to campus in person. My daughter's mental health depends on it. This is from Ashley Newman. Dear board members, I am deeply saddened that still there is no real options for parents with struggling kids during this incredible hard time for learning. I was told by Superintendent Ochoa that he was working with principals to get some in-person options. I'm sorry, hold on a minute. Here we go. To get a person to get some options and have yet to see any schools implement them. I was very happy to hear that special needs children have gotten to go back in small numbers because I know that those families are truly struggling with trying to accommodate their children's needs. The general students, though, are not being helped. I had my child I had my child to do counseling services that the school offered, and with our problems stemming from distance learning, it was disappointing that these couldn't be offered as an in person service. Screen time is and will always be a huge concern to me. Young children should not be on the screen 4 hours on end a day. I have heard from other parents that on top of their school time, their elementary age students will have hours of more screen time with homework on a computer. We need to change how distance learning is being done if the board refuses to open the school up for a modified schedule. I have felt like I have no choice but to remove my daughter from Hollister School District over to Spring Grove. She has been going since last Monday, and the changes I have seen in her are astronomical. She went from hating school and crying almost every day to back being excited and loving it. She still has some computer work in the morning, but it is much different than at Sarah Vista. HSD is making children be overworked, mentally drained, and emotionally drained, and is giving parents no option other than attending a parent seminar on how to navigate Google Classroom. Our kids need help now, not when the schools decide to eventually help out. I've advocated hard for my child with talking to each board member, talking to Superintendent Ochoa, talking to the principal at Sarah Vista, and with her teacher, and still felt like I got nowhere and was forced to leave. You will see me, you will see as time goes on that more and more parents will feel forced to do something. Hear our concerns and help us. Thank you, Ashley Newman. And that's the last.
Okay. All right, so the next agenda item is to approve the consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. I think this is.
Okay. To approve the consent agenda, less items 11E, F, and G. Does somebody want to make that motion?
I move that we uh, approve the consent agenda minus items E, F, and G.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, do we put those items last?
So you're gonna approve the agenda, then you go 11E, 11F, and 11G, right, before 12.
Before 12,
Yeah.
okay. So my questions about 11E have to do with, I thought that we were going to move to, this is pre-COVID-19 crisis,
Yeah.
move to electric buses with a grant from whatever. And I was just wondering, where did that go? Because that was,
Yeah. Lisa Wiggins is on the call. I had her call in just a minute ago. And Lisa and I have basically developed a plan where it is going to take us more than a year in order to arrive at that place. But the goal for us is still to be able to acquire a minimum of 5 school buses, because that's what we need in order to get our students to and from school on a daily basis. And Lisa, feel free to share your perspective on what that process will entail. But from my perspective as a superintendent, that's still very much the plan. It's just gonna take us time because we've obviously lost the last 9 months dealing with or the last 7 months dealing with coronavirus. So Lisa, if you want to just chime in here. I hung up on her on accident.
Yeah.
But she'll call back.
Okay.
She'll call back in a minute.
But while we're waiting for her,
Yeah.
with first student, are they just on standby right now? And
That's right. And, you know, I think we did open at Lad Lane, so we've been able to get kids to and from school using our buses and using first student as well. But at some point we are going to reopen, whether it's January or sometime after. And when we do, first student, this contract locks them in to provide all of our busing for us.
okay.
All right, here she is.
Oh,
Hi, Lisa.
hi, sorry about that.
Yep,
Can you hear me
so
okay?
we can hear you. Yeah, just go ahead and speak real nice and clear, and just any other feedback for the board on our plans to be able to acquire electric buses in the next 2 years.
Right, yes, so it is a process. There was a grant that our transportation coordinator worked with through Monterey County, and we have been approved this year to receive one electric bus. Or that's federal regional education route. So there is a process of effective, so it has to be approved, and there is a limit to how many buses you can receive. And like I said, we had hoped to get the first bus by December. My last conversation with her is we're looking like hopefully in January that one will come in, but still haven't sure as everything to do with all the COVID.
Lisa, you're breaking up on me. Could you call us from an office phone?
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. We'll just need you to summarize the last 30 seconds or so.
okay, let me get our office phone and I'll call from there.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get too far off the specific topic of first student, because who will be driving the electric buses? Will that be us
so
or per student?
when we acquire them, we'll allow
We could hire within, right, Diego?
we
We
would
could have our own drivers.
within our own staff.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, you know, there's a little bit of a process there. CSEA, I think, will be very willing to work with us on.
oh yeah, creating a job description for bus driver.
Yeah, but that does take time too, Liz, because you've got.
Not too much. I mean, I think by the time you get the buses, you should have a job description ready to rock and roll and board approved, through them. I don't think they're reluctant to ever bring on new positions to the bargaining unit. So it's just a matter of, working or bringing that to their attention of your intention of creating something like that at some point, if not this year, for sure by next school year.
Well,
or for summer, even if sooner.
did we have a job description like that years ago?
We did, because we had our own busing system years ago.
That's what I thought. Yeah. And so couldn't we just try to find those archives and maybe update it?
Jan.
I think I heard part of what President Bernowski was asking, and the drivers that we currently have went to work for first student years ago after we had the contract with Tiffany. Those drivers do live in this area, and I believe that, if we were to offer our own and have a job description and postings, that a lot of those same drivers
They'd want to come
would
in.
be interested.
Would migrate over.
Okay. Jan, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted, when I read the contract, I was curious about the if we're doing it during COVID, normally we run 3 to a seat. Mm-hmm. So would we be changing the route so it would be 2 to a seat, or how does that work under the conditions of COVID?
Yeah.
You can't even do 2 to a seat. You have to do 1. You still got to space them out 6 feet. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that Noelia, our transportation coordinator, was working with First Student, even for those that we've brought back. There are requirements for staggering the children so that they are that 6 feet distance apart.
Yeah.
See, I didn't see that anywhere in the, oh, wait a minute, I did see for, I take that back. There is an attachment for COVID. Sorry. Take it back.
That's primarily, I think, for us to basically have a standby rate and make sure that they can be available for us should we go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
Main contract doesn't have the language built in for COVID, but I think that, there are, those arrangements are being made, but I don't believe it's in the big contract that we have that's ongoing past, hopefully when we return to normal.
Well, it says it's an attachment.
Right, the amendment 1.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Yeah.
that's more addressing they would like us to provide, if everybody remembers when COVID first hit and there were some funds that were released in the spring, that was prior to us knowing all of the federal corona relief funds that we would get. They had asked about us continuing to pay them on a standby rate. That didn't happen in the spring because all the funds were not there. So the amendment that's there is so that now and this current year with the closure that we would still continue to pay basically 45% of what our daily rate was before, to kind of have them on standby and make sure that should we resume that they would have drivers available for us.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you,
So-
Lisa.
Okay, thank you.
But just
Hold on.
so
Sit tight.
so we got the grant for one bus. So what's a reasonable expectation for bus 2, 3? Because the only reason really I was asking about this is this contract. Does this preclude us from acquiring 6 electric buses if we could get the grant for that and operating them and not having to pay per student?
It doesn't preclude us from doing it, but the way the grants work, they release money to regional transportation authorities.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really get the grant from the Department of Ed or from the city of Hollister. They develop these regional transportation, regions, and they say, this is how much money there is, and this is the type of school or type of organization you fall into. So they assign you to a classification. They say, okay, you're mid-small organization. You qualify for 2 buses this year, and this year it happened to be 1 bus.
Okay.
So we couldn't predict for you. They might say, hey, we're putting a lot of money into transportation next year, so you can qualify for up to 4 buses, in which case we'd say, that's wonderful. Or they might say 2 more. We think a really reasonable expectation is 2 vehicles per year. So
Okay.
2 next year, that brings us up to 3, and then 2 the following year, that brings us up to 5, and that would allow us to operate our own program in subsequent years.
Okay. And we can, with 1 bus or 2 or 3, we can coexist with first student.
That's correct.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that was all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yes, thank you. Okay, good night.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
No, I think for now, till we're able to get, the full fleet online, I think doing a collaborative, contract with first student is, I think, the best way to meet the needs of our community. And because I know what were we doing? We were even contracting last year with the county route system, to try to minimize some of the stuff happening at the schools. So definitely, I think if we could, bring more utilization of school transportation to our kids and our community, I think it's a good thing.
Well, since you're such a good proponent of it, do you want to make a motion that we approve item 11E?
I will make a motion that we approve the contract with First Student Incorporated.
Just okay.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Okay, so Liz and Steve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. All right, item 11F. My request only is Diego, just take us through that, just, briefly, what it is that we're actually approving, because it caught me off guard that it was a consent item.
It's an annually consent item, and I do have our Director of Ed Services on the phone. She coordinates, Caroline Calero. Caroline, can you hear me?
Yes.
Caroline coordinates the SPSA process for the schools. I'm going to speak briefly about it, Caroline, and then I want you to feel free to go ahead and add in anything you feel like we need to get across to the board. But fundamentally, what a school site plan, a single plan for student achievement does is it takes the district's plan and it applies it to that site and it makes it specific to that site. So the school plans for student achievement are different at each of the school sites because they each serve a different population of students, and it's a requirement for any school that has Title I funds coming into the school to be able to adopt this plan and implement this plan. And so our school principals work with our district office to establish a process where they have teachers, classified, and parents serve on this committee that help them evaluate the plan and then determine how the school will apply funds in order to meet the school's goals. So Caroline, with that, is there anything you want to add before we open up for questions from President Bernowski and the rest of the board?
No, these two particular schools are CSI schools. So this submission of the plan is really a highlight of the CSI plan, which is aligned with the district plan and what we've submitted as for the CSI school improvement grant.
So who are you submitting it to?
The SIPSA, we submit it, the process is it goes before the school site council. We submit it for the board. All school plans go before the board. And then a separate SI plan submitted to the council, and they review it, and then they further submit their plan, the CSI plan, which unfolds our plan to the state.
Okay, so has the County of San Benito Office of Education, have they already blessed this one?
They've blessed the CSI plan. In fact, it was recognized as an exemplary plan because it was so collaborative and thorough with our sites and our stakeholders. And that's been approved along with the budget, which is reflected in the SIPSA. So basically all the plans need to be aligned, and the county has blessed ours. I just sent one minor revision today, and it's good to go.
Yeah, they also complicate it even more by connecting it to something called the Consolidated Application, or CONAP, it's called. So what they do is then the CONAP is where you explain how you're utilizing all the money at the district level. So they actually take all of our single plans for student achievement, our school plans for student achievement, and they hold it up against the CONAP to make sure that it matches. So an example would be if a district said they were going to spend $600,000 on training for English learners, so that every teacher could know how to meet the needs of English learners. And then you go into each of the schools' plan, and none of them talks about training people to help English learners, then that would be a major audit finding in the consolidated application. And you would basically, you'd lose the money if you didn't prove that the district's stated purpose of funds were actually taking place with our school site. So Caroline, I think that's an important part of understanding how the SPSA has to be aligned with the other districts' plans.
Yes, and additionally, the CSI portion of the funding gets approved through the grant report and management tool. They call it Walmart, which also has to align with the Con App. All these things need to line up, and they have, basically. We wouldn't submit this if they haven't been approved.
Okay, so do you have our board binder in front of you?
I don't.
If you go on the website,
Well,
Caroline, it's right on the front page under
Yeah,
current board
I
meeting.
have the packet.
Yeah, if you go, what page are you referring to?
So page 80, and it's
Page
really, you
80.
can answer it.
Yep.
So what does that mean where we are, and I'm so glad that they spell it out being colorblind, because they're all orange except for suspension rates, which
Yep.
is red.
Yep.
So do we want the needle to be the right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
We want the needle moving yellow, green, and blue. And part of the reason that both Rancho, San Justo, and Mays are in CSI this year is that every single indicator is either in the red or in the orange. And so what that means is that when they compare you to all the other schools in California, you're in the lower 25%, but you're also decreasing from the prior year. So let's say a school was in, let's call it the 24th percentile in terms of suspension rates. But let's say they did better this year than they did last year, they would actually move them to a yellow because the school is making progress. So what this is referring to is it's that the school's indicators were low, but also got worse from the prior year. So that's the reason why both schools were identified for CSI. And I do want to remind the board that this 2019 fall data is actually based on 2018 results. So it's not based on last year's data, and it's not based on this year's data. It's based on 2 years ago. You know how California results are often being evaluated in arrears in that way. So I just wanted to, inform the board that that's how the data is being pulled together.
okay. I mean, obviously, it looks horrific. That said, Jan, I see your hand. That's all I see. There.
Yeah, okay. Rob, I'd like you to put one hand on page 79, the other hand on page 130, like every board member to do that.
I'm sorry, you said
And
130?
yeah, 130. One hand on 79 and one hand on page 130.
Okay.
And it gives you an idea of what our two middle schools, deal with. For Mays, we have just about 74% of our population is socioeconomically disadvantaged. At Rancho, it's 55.9%. English language learners at Mays is 35.5%, and at Rancho is 24.8%. Homeless at Mays is 2.2%, and at Rancho is 1.3%. Student with disabilities at Rancho is 13.7% and is 15% at Mays. I think when you look at, the diversity and the challenges that these schools are dealing with the myriad of challenges of the students, there's no easy fix. You're dealing with a lot of children with a lot of different issues. And frankly, during this time period of 2018 and 2019, this was a tough time that we only had, did we have 2 VPs at that time?
We had one VP at that time.
One.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. So you're dealing with a principal and one VP with all these kids, with all of these issues that they're dealing with. And so when you look at what we're dealing with in as a whole, and you're trying to help these children, I mean, it's pretty impossible. And we had everybody held up at the district office. We had nobody at the school sites. And this is what you get. Carla.
Yeah, no,
I think it also, I mean, this also highlights too the issues we've been bringing up for the last couple of years about just our students and suspension rates and just the issues that our students were facing.
Right.
And I'm curious too if Superintendent Ochoa, if this, I mean, obviously it's here in our packet, but if this is going to inform the new task force that we have that's looking at the school to prison pipeline issue, because this would be good. I'm sure they have data, but this is also really good for them to maybe review. I'm sure they already are, but just wondering.
It's definitely included in there, Carla.
Thank you. But yeah, that was a tough time, 2018. And
yeah, I think when we look at data, and if you just look at scores and you look at these dashboards and stuff, you really need to look at our student population as a whole, and then what services we had at the school site at
right,
the time,
right.
because it's apples and oranges.
And I just want to make sure that we, the other one is the foster youth, although there's very
Yeah.
few, but they are probably youth that hit other categories, right? That may
Sure.
be children of color, that may be without a home, that may be socio disadvantaged or even disability. So it's just, I think you're right, the services that were lacking during that time.
Right. We have to take that into effect.
well,
Have
again,
to.
my point is, we were asked to approve this as a consent item, which to me, I don't recall ever doing this on a consent basis. Anyway, but it doesn't matter. We can come up with all the excuses in the world, but the fact of the matter is, according to this data, we're still failing in our mission to educate the kids. And I just wanted to highlight that and hope that it gets addressed in the future in a meaningful way. So,
Are you there?
Caroline, yep, we can hear you.
It would be, if we're looking at data that is, we're using this data for these purposes, but if you look at the single plans for student achievement, the school plans for student achievement, at the time that this data was, came out, the plans are, dare I say, like night and day. The direct services to students and to the sites to affect the data here is astronomically more embedded in the plan than any of the previous plans. If you were to look at the previous plans, actions and allocations, they do not, from before 2018-19, they do not directly impact students in the way that these plans and allocations of funds do. And working under the superintendent, that is his mission, that is what his leadership has brought forth, and that there are direct services hitting students. And the monies now are really designed to impact students at the site level to move the achievement. So I'm with you, Rob, on this one, that this data is something to be concerned about. But if you were to compare the types of actions and allocation of resources that we had at that time to this time, they're very different.
I appreciate that, Caroline.
Yeah.
Again, I would encourage the school board to request that these not be as consent items and actually review it, because I mean, what are you going to do next year if you're still in the orange? When does the needle move, beyond that? So, because that's what
Well, let me ask you a question, Trustee Bernosky. You've been here for 4 years. What have you seen during the time you've been here in moving the needle?
So, uh, well, first and foremost, I sound like a broken record because I'm always stressing that these are the only measurements that we have to go on, and we have not been doing a good job overall. And oftentimes I feel like it has fallen on deaf ears. That said, we have, for a certain amounts of our population, we have created wonderful programs and nurtured them to incredible success. So things like the AAA and the HDLA and growing that has been fantastic. Um, Recognizing that the population, not who's making up the population, but and this, I'm giving credit to Diego, not and us for blessing what Diego wanted to do. Moving the population or decreasing the population at Rancho and Middle, and changing some of the personnel around have been, to me, fantastic. I don't have any data to show what results that they're getting, and that's what I'm sort of whining about right now is where is the data on our agenda that shows that we're actually making academic achievement. And to some degree, I feel like I've been a failure as a school board member on that end, because I'm not seeing the data that shows our kids are doing better, which is the very reason that I ran. You brought up the suspension rate and the school to prison pipeline. And again, I've said it 3 or 4 times, I think, at our meetings, but the one thing that sticks with me with Diego, pre-hiring him, was a lot of behavior problems are a result of not meeting the academic needs. And I truly do believe that. If you got a kid that's bored in school, or he's not excited, or she's not excited to come to school, trouble is probably more likely. So that's why I stress, if we meet these their needs, we might not have so many suspensions. So nothing happens instantaneously, as you know. We'll have to see how it happens over time. I'm just not seeing it yet. And of course, the COVID-19 crisis, that has set us back, a couple of years, I think, in terms of data collection. I mean, because we stopped doing standardized tests. The state stopped requiring it. How we're doing on the student assessments, I don't know, but if I could wave my magic wand, that's what we would be looking at, is what are the teachers saying, how the kids are doing right now, and are we addressing it? And that's sort of also why I asked for 12A and 12B to get on there, just to see, can we get some insight into how these kids are doing. So,
and President Bernowski, I just wanna reiterate, the data that you're looking at and the data that the public is looking at is not test score data from last school year. It is test score data from 2 school years ago. So any evaluation of what we're doing based on the test scores from 2 years ago is not going to address your concern to know that what we're doing is having or not having an impact. I really regret that the state canceled testing last year, because I would have loved to be able to celebrate with all of you the growth that our students made last year. And it doesn't look like we're going to have very valid state tests this year either, because of the inequities created by the COVID. But I did want to follow up so that the board and the public are aware. in 2018, the school plans for student achievement were approved for AAA, Calaveras, and every other school in the district as part of consent item 11G. Um, so it is typical for these to be consent items. I don't want the public or the board to be under the impression that this item is typically a discussion action item. It is typically a consent item because of basically the fact that it often mirrors the district's plan, the district's LCAP, the district's consolidated app, which are all discussion action items. So I just wanted to share that. And then Caroline, if there are no other questions for you, thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, can I just add one more thing? It's sort of to address what Carla said. I do have to say, the reports from the principal at R.O. Hardin and the reports from Lad Lane are very, very intellectually satisfying to me, because it's very clear to me that they are data driven. And it's not that the other principals may not be, but the way they presented showed that they were looking at, numbers like this and being very specific on, we've identified the numbers and here's specifically what we're doing for it. And that's what I want to drive, the school district towards. So anyway, I appreciate that you guys allowed me to take this off consent this time. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept 11F.
I'll second.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? 5-0.
All right, Diego.
Thank you, Caroline. All right, I'm gonna have Lisa call back in a minute here.
Okay.
All right. So that leads us to item 11G, which is
The county's treasurer investment
IOF.
funds. Yeah.
Let me just get to it here. All right.
So this, am I free to speak on this?
Investment of funds
Yeah.
report. Yeah.
So, look, the only reason I wanted to take this one off the consent, other than I'm very pleased to see that we're earning, 1.6% on our money, which is
Pretty good.
150 basis points more than I'm earning.
That's not bad. Hey, that's not, 1.6 is good.
Yeah, we'll take it. But I think I had told you either at the last school board meeting or the prior one to that I was meeting with the county, in this case, the County Office of Education, because, we as a board had agreed to enable ourselves to borrow money from other funds that we have, and also from the county. And as a result of that, in my past work on our cash reporting, Diego had mentioned to me that getting our cash figures has been very, very difficult. And I guess you were asking, did I have any insight into that? So anyway, I went and I met with Shannon Hansen and Crystal Lamonto from the County Office of Education. And it was more specifically because what I had heard, not only from our own school district, but others out in the community, that the county had asked us to hold up on sending warrants over for payment, sort of indicating that there might have been a cash flow issue. That was one issue. And the other was the reports that they use that the team here uses to present to us. There were difficulties with it. The information didn't seem to be correct, and they weren't making any headway with it. So anyway, I went and met with them, and I'm going to tell you that first of all, I was very pleased that they met with me and they took so much time to explain to me how our cash flows work. And this is as between we collect property taxes and we get money from the state, and somehow that has to end up in our account. Well, there were some glitches in the reporting, and that had to do with it just, you know, people pay attention to, I guess, the squeaky wheel. And I think that there was a lot of friction, not between personnel, but just friction in the information flow from the county treasurer to the county office of education. And they have straightened that out according to them. Diego, you could report whether Lisa agrees with that or not. But they have very specific people that have very specific tasks now, and the friction in the movement of information has been removed. So that's good news. The second news is, yes, when COVID-19 had struck, there was a huge amount of funds that needed to be dispensed by us, right? We had to buy all that COVID-19 equipment, computer equipment, and things like that. And we had the money all along, but a lot of our money at any given time is invested just like this report suggests. So they can't just liquidate corporate bonds immediately without a loss in order to make a large cash disbursement that they weren't normally expecting. So just by way of example, the County Office of Education might expect that that every week they spend $1 million on behalf of the Hollister School District and all the other school districts. If we ramp that up to $5 million in one week, they've got to either liquidate things or they've got to slow down the payments to the vendors to let the commercial paper that we're invested in mature and come due. And so that's all it was. So, you know, had I been reelected, I might have stayed with that a little bit longer. But from what I got, I'm pretty satisfied that, you know, that the cash flow thing was a short-term glitch and the information flow has been corrected. So that's it. So, Lisa, do you have any commentary?
No, I think that's exactly right. And so what we had done on our end when they were going through that was they just asked us that any large payments we knew, like for example with our bond funds, that we gave them a payment schedule so that they were able to liquidate more funds exactly to have on hand in order to be able to make those payments. So I think you're right. It wasn't an issue of not having the cash. It just was not being liquidated quickly enough, like you said, when everybody started spending more, increasing our spending. So yeah, we haven't had any issues since that time. So thank you.
And did they fix the are encumbrances now showing up on your cash reports?
Yes.
Okay.
And not just on cash, but even for payroll and our purchase orders, there were no encumbrances we're doing. But Santa Clara did get that fixed in October. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. All right. Any other questions or comments? Does somebody want to make the motion to approve the investment funds report?
I'll move that we approve consent item agenda 11G.
I'll second it.
Okay, Steve and Jan. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? 5-0.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. All right. Good night.
12A.
All right, let's see here. Mr. Ward, call in. 61680.
Now this is Mr. Becerra.
No, that's
It was already approved, Jan.
yeah.
Oh,
That's what,
sorry.
We should be on 12A.
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Carolyn, is this you?
No, this is Ken.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, because on my phone it says Carolyn Lisi, so I thought you must be over in the
I'm back in the maintenance.
area. Okay, all right. Mr. Ward has a very strong track record of moving all around the district. He gets his steps in.
Phantasma.
I find him all over campus here. I find him in the nurse's office. I find him in transportation.
Gotta keep it moving.
He keeps moving throughout the day. So he's with us tonight. Mr. Ward, I'm going to pass it over to you. We're on item 12A on our agenda. Do you have it in front of you there?
I do.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. This is Kip Ward, Director of Student Services, and I'm looking forward to talking about our school social worker. That's our first update that I'm going to give for the evening. Miss Adriana Gallegos is our school social worker who has a pupil personnel services credential and is a certified social worker. Just a real brief background, she's funded through Prop 47 funds that were used in a cohort with Hollister School District, the County Office of Education, San Benito High School, and Roma San Juan to hire social workers for the different schools. We are fortunate to have Ms. Gallegos working and has a referral process in place, which is from each site, there's a point person who sends referrals to her. She's currently serving 25 families throughout the district. She has held parent trainings on challenges during the time of COVID. She actually recorded that in English and Spanish and broadcast it on the HSD social media YouTube channel. In addition, she makes regular home visits to students that are struggling with a number of different issues. And something we're really excited about is she created a Hollister School District wellness site, which I've listed there for you as wellness.hsd.org, which was shared out with the school community. It has parent and community resources, student resources. So when you get an opportunity, take a look at that. We're excited about that website. She tries to spend a lot of her time focusing on chronically absent students. Those are students that are missing more than 10% of the school days. So she reaches out to those students with phone calls, home visits, etc. In addition, she's done a great job of attending principal and assistant principal meetings to collaborate to make sure that the site administrators know what she can do, know her face, and make sure that she connects with them. And as was mentioned earlier, you were talking about the school safety task force. We're hoping that that task force, when that process completes itself, that they will recommend school social workers at every campus for 21-22 school year. And as you know, that task force is in response to board resolution number 4 to define school discipline. And then the last thing on the bullet point there that we're really excited about is the Gatlin chapter. The Gatlin chapter of the Kinship Center is funding a full-time counselor and a half-time therapist for our Hardin School. A lot of you are probably familiar with the Kinship Center. They run fundraisers in San Benito County to support homeless and foster youth, and they contacted me recently with that offer to make funds available to have a full-time counselor and a half-time therapist at our Hardin School. So that's kind of a quick synopsis of what our school social worker has been up to, and I can take any questions if you have those.
Hey, Kip, it's Rob. So I want to make sure I heard you correct, because I think what the intent of this board was when we terminated or allowed the school resource officer program to end, we were going to more or less fund social workers, for our school district. And am I understanding you that right now, forget about what you said about R.O. Hardin, but we only have one social worker for the whole school district right now?
We currently have one social worker for the entire school district, yes.
Because I was thinking of a bigger increase in that, because, I mean, the goal, I've always sort of been critical of the school resource program because it was expensive and I didn't see what benefit it was. At least my intent, and I'll let my fellow colleagues here speak. I just thought that there'd be a bigger presence of social workers, to meet I mean, the very needs of what we just saw in the school site plans. So is there anything on the horizon to get more social workers involved in our district at various schools?
Absolutely, absolutely. Looking to 21-22, the goal is to have a school social worker on every campus throughout the district.
Okay.
I also think, Kit, that you should reiterate the role that our prevention and early intervention case managers play,
Sure.
and reiterate the impact that our two middle school counselors, as well as our two mental health clinicians that work at really with students kind of throughout, just to kind of add a little bit more to that, just to sort of explain why we're taking this more deliberate plan to develop a whole team of people going into 21-22. And obviously coronavirus has again delayed a lot of the things that we had hoped to do sooner.
Certainly, if I could direct the board's attention to 12B, that's the next slide there for the mental health support. Does everybody have that in front of them?
You can speak to it, Kit, because we're going to talk more at length about that as well.
Okay.
But you can just refer to it.
Sure. So looking at mental health supports during distance learning and looking forward, I wanted to hit some highlights and share some information with the board tonight in terms of what's being done to support students currently. One of the things is learning monitors. I know you've heard about the learning monitors, but they are key. They're making daily calls to check on students. In addition to home visits that are being made by site administrators and our school social worker, as well as our parent involvement and attendance liaison. Superintendent Ochoa mentioned the middle school counselors. We have a middle school counselor at Rancho and one at Mays who do regular check-ins and support for students. In addition, we have a parent workshop coming up on SEL support in the home on December 10th. It's going to be conducted by the special ed department. And then mental health therapy sessions for students with IEPs. Those are our two mental health therapists who support students with educationally related mental health services. In addition, we've had parent and student trainings ongoing regarding SEL for Mays and Rancho San Justo families. They're happening virtually, of course. We have a referral process in place for prevention and early intervention case managers with the San Diego County Mental Health. And so those case managers are available at any time to, through a referral process that we've created to support students and look at the needs, and then if need be, refer them to a clinician. So that's a great service that we have partnered with mental health. In addition, we have Sanford Harmony, which is a social emotional learning program. It's a free program, a free website that has multiple SEL lessons, books, games, and it's actually the most used SEL program in the country due to the fact that it's free and very thorough. So those are some of the things that we're doing with the mental health support services that, of course, cross over and tie in with our school social worker, and that's where we are with all of that.
Okay, I just see the role of a guidance counselor being different than that of a social worker, where, and maybe you got, my colleagues can help me out here, or Diego, you can, but you know, a guidance counselor, you know, as I recall, and what I think they are is they're helping the student by way of example make academic choices and you know, choose paths that make sense for them. Whereas I look at social workers that are getting into, I don't want to say into the mind, but getting into the situation. Why is this student not attending, and what can we do to get them in? And they're focused on that element. And if that social worker sees something that he or she has seen many times before, can say, you know what, I think that we need to get this entity involved or this entity involved. So again, the folks that are, I mean, everybody wants the student to do well, but the personnel that are best equipped to handle academics, they stick with academics. And, you know, the social worker, you know, can help out in the non-academic areas. And I'm going to refer.
I agree that a school social worker can go much deeper, but I do want to stress that our middle school counselors, you're correct, they do guidance in terms of classes and master schedules, but they also do a lot of hard work in terms of being a support for students that need that, doing regular check-ins, even running small groups on campus, you know, when we're in person. And they've been spending a lot of time during COVID reaching out to those students and just having regular check-ins, having that familiar voice and that support.
Okay. Carla has a question or comment.
Both. Well, first, I'm so excited about this. Thank you, Mr. Ward. Yay, finally, we're getting some social workers, and I'm really excited about the school safety task force looking at every school having a social worker. So that's so exciting and hopeful. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but within those social workers we have at each school site, there's a possibility of them, one or two or whoever, having interns, right? From either CSUMB or San Jose State, which is gonna also help our students, correct?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. Absolutely. When we have school social workers on our campus in 21-22, we'll have the opportunity to bring in interns. And I've been working with Mr. Romero, Dan Romero, one of the coordinators in special ed, as he has a strong pipeline to those students that need those hours. And we're going to be able to bring those people in and to build the team even bigger.
That's so exciting. And then, and going to the points of that you're building a team. And I think I've talked to some of the school counselors that we have, and you're right, they have support groups and they provide that extra mentorship and guidance to our students, which is also necessary. And I just want to ask for two things. If you can talk to the school task force about considerations for, of course, language capacity of our future social workers, obviously Spanish. And I think the other consideration is cultural humility, racial equity lens when offering groups and services, considering the population we serve and considering, you know, who our target groups are here at the schools. And so just something for that group to consider: language, culture, and racial equity lens. And then the other consideration is just kind of a logistics, and I'm sure you all are already thinking about this, but you have a team, and I'm curious if all these folks are gonna have an opportunity to meet quarterly and just kind of touch base and, you know, and maybe just say, oh, you know, I see these trends of whether it's drug and alcohol or bullying or suicide, whatever it is that they're seeing as trends and issues, if they all are going to collaborate and then kind of get a pulse and maybe even report back to us of, you know, what's going on and what are we seeing and what are we doing that's helping our students and what's going on that maybe we need more service.
Right.
Certainly, yes. And we currently, I have a weekly meeting with our school social workers, so I see that continuing next year when we have a team of 10, just so that we can all be on the same page and support each other.
Yeah. Communication is key.
Any other questions?
That's great.
So, this is going to be a weird question. I read in media reports, newspapers, stuff like that, and I hear about you know, student distress being much higher, and I hear anecdotal reports of, you know, suicides or suicidal thoughts and things like that. Is that becoming a factor in our student population, in your opinion?
Well, we're we're certainly seeing higher levels of stress amongst certain populations, amongst certain groups of students, and I'm not going to, speak to specifics in terms of what our school social worker is dealing with in terms of details, but certainly, yes, when we have our weekly meeting, she shares with me that her outreach to families and her communication with students, a lot of it is around elevated stress and issues with feeling isolated.
I think, Kip, we're facing a new challenge that we've never faced before, which is the emotional well-being of the household.
You guys?
Where in prior years, we were talking to children in our offices and in our classrooms, but we really
One of these.
knew what was going on at home if they told us, or if the parent told us. Well, now we're staring at the screen and we can see the stress level at home. We can see the parent in distress. We can see the child
Oh, you had to put something.
dealing with the whole family situation in a way that we've never been able to do. And I think, Kip, that's something that basically our school social worker and our case managers and our school counselors are experiencing. And to refer back to a comment you made, President Bernowski, about the role of school counselors, I think in a typical school year, it's very common for a school counselor to spend about 15% of their time doing what you would call like social emotional counseling for kids, because 85% of their time is spent on getting emails to and from teachers and parents and talking about classes for next year. But those roles have been reversed because of the learning support monitors that Kip mentioned earlier, where we have so many people calling to check on children who aren't attending and aren't turning in work, that our school counselors, and Kip, you're free to chime in here, but our two school counselors are spending substantially more time on the social emotional well-being of our students.
Yes, agreed.
All right, it's, well.
But it's unique to this year.
Yeah, and that's just what I'm worried about, because as I go around the neighborhood and go around the community and I talk to parents, and some are very adamant. Their kids are just stressed out beyond belief. And of course, we always have to be sensitive. Our kids showing any signs that it's going to play out, and again, I'll say it, I'm always worried about childhood suicide, or thoughts about that and what that leads to later on in life and stuff like that. And it's no secret that I don't like our schools closed, because I think human beings like to be together, and I think kids need to be together during these times. I understand why they're not, but I just want to be sensitive to that, so we don't get any, again, a student that is so distressed that they're going to do something bad and we're not on top of it. So, Liz.
I think for me, looking, having it sounds like our counselors are already working with our students on the social emotional piece, which I think if our numbers continue to go up, we're going to need to really refocus our efforts in that area specifically, because part of it is our job, part of it is a family. It falls on the responsibility of the family. We don't control what happens in that environment, and just listening to the public comments from both sides, parents that see their children completely distressed, too much time on a computer. I don't know if we can revisit that, Mr. Ochoa. Is it really that productive for them to be on the computer for that amount of time? just trying to build something more, just not, because having a child, seeing my grandson who has so much energy to be in front of a computer, I can't, my own child who had ADD, I can't even see how, I don't know what kind of parent I would have been under these circumstances, with my kids at home. And that just, it breaks my heart. And I know we're not going to be able to address every single need, but I'm hoping we can really look to see what we can do to better refine what it is that we're doing and really making a difference in these kids' lives, to make less stress, not more stress for them. And if it's, I mean, I can't, I don't know what the magic bullet is. I don't think anybody really does. But, because we haven't had the opportunity to really look outside of us to see what other districts are doing through this difficult time, to see what other districts, how they've been able to work through these challenges, through long distance, and get some really good ideas. But I think the need is definitely there. And it's just finding the right people to meet those needs right now. And how do we get them?
Carla.
I think too, you bring up the point of, if there's a possibility for our, whether it be our, and I think it would be more appropriate for our social workers, but we could just say our team, our mental health team, right? If they could offer some kind of, whether it's workshops or even why rebuild the wheel, right? There's a lot of good resources out there, webinars that are going on that maybe we can, post on our, or send out to parents and just offer as resources. Cause yeah, it is hard to work from home or to have to go out to work in this COVID time and have to come back. And I think the other piece that, you reminded me of is now that we're hitting this difficult time with COVID, there might be more people that are sick in these kids' families, or there might be deaths and unfortunately, right? And so I think we as a district are doing the responsible job to not expose, by having them be out and the school site. But now what about, and I think you're right, it's like a tough one, right? Is that whose responsibility? It's a community, right? We are a community. So maybe just thinking about that, Mr. Ward and Superintendent Ochoa, about seeing if we could ask our mental health team to find those resources in the event of, that people might need them, even if it's not us providing them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Because I mean, the like Rob said, the suicide prevention, there's certain stigmas that we just don't feel comfortable talking about. And I want us to work through those and be able to feel like, okay, we can build and have support groups that, our kids can readily and actively be a part of, and not have the stigma of, I tried to commit suicide last year, or, my parents were getting a divorce and I didn't know what to do, or, my grandmother who I was so close to passed away, from COVID. So, I mean, I want to really be able to be mindful of all of those things happening in our kids' minds, and not, because for a child, I mean, those things are major. And we don't have the ability to know how to process those things. So how, as adults, do we provide those avenues for them, the resources that they need? For the parents, that don't know the language, don't know the system, don't know, how all of this stuff works, and or afraid to ask, or afraid to bring that out. I just think we need to really do more and adjust our focus on that, and the rest will fall in place.
See, my whole point with this is when a teacher walks into the classroom or the class settles down, the teacher knows what the vibe of the classroom is. She can say, is it high energy and happy, and is everybody high energy and happy, or is it down for some reason, or a few students down? And here the teacher can sort of address that issue. How are we feeling today, right? And spur that conversation in the classroom and see what people are saying. In this environment of Zoom, or distance learning, how does the teacher get the sense of, is my class healthy as a whole? Are there individuals who aren't healthy? And that's what I want to sort of make sure we don't forget, because it's possible that this will extend. I mean, we don't know what the holidays are going to bring us, but
Yeah.
these poor kids, without that social interaction and without that, the teacher and the principal coming in contact with them, because we all can tell a kid that's down, and we can tell when a whole classroom is down, and discuss it. And that's what I'm readjusting my mind, that mental health is going to be a huge part of the education system for the next
Yeah.
few years. I mean, much more than it was before. So
Yeah. I agree, Rob.
yeah.
I agree.
Any other comments?
But like, as you were saying, if the teacher is the first point of contact and is noticing there's something not right with her class, is giving that liberty to some teachers to really assess, have that freedom to have, those open conversations. I don't know how we teach that, how we can provide the teachers with that tool, right? Because again, they're the ones that spot a lot of things. They would be the first ones that spot things in the classroom. They're going to be the first ones that spot things in this virtual realm as well. And how do we give them the ability to, the freedom as well to figure out or have those discussions depending on the age group of the children or whatever, or at least know right away to identify a student and get them connected to someone right away. So I mean, I get what you're saying, Rob, and I just would love to see more freedom for our teachers to really provide some support to our kids and not be so constrained to just the minutes of, oh, okay, oh my gosh, we talked about this for 15 minutes that ate up in our English time, or whatever. And because sometimes you need to address this part to be able to really focus and work when it comes to that. A kid, if they're hurting inside mentally or physically, they're not going to be able to learn.
I think sometimes during the class time, experienced teachers, if a student, let's say it's just been like a BC student and all of a sudden stops working, there's a key there. If a student who normally participates and stops, there's a key there. If a student who never used to participate and then all of a sudden is a problem, there's a key there. There's all these different types of things that an experienced teacher is going to pick up on. And whether it's virtual or you're in class, we're going to know. And, so to me, I just don't see it. You know what I mean? I guess because I've taught for so many years that I know what to look for. And now if I was a new teacher and doing all this new stuff and, I think it might be really hard. And I would be, but of course, if I was a new teacher, I wouldn't be sweating all this technology stuff either. So you got to look at it that way. But I think in training with the new teachers, a lot of it is, how do you deal in a virtual classroom with classroom management? What do you look for a child who's in trauma? How do you know? And those are the kinds of things that we as a district, should be teaching our younger teachers, our inexperienced teachers, things to look for.
Mhm.
Because whenever someone all of a sudden starts doing something that's not right, it's not their usual MO, that's a big signal. Something's not going right. And that's when we need, as teachers, we need to speak up. But I will tell you, sometimes we can speak up until the cows come home. And in my years, and having teachers at my side with me, sometimes our county is slow to move. Very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. And I'll leave it at that.
Steve, you have anything?
I don't see him. I think we lost him.
Having some
Oh, okay.
tech difficulties.
All right. Anything else on that?
Mm.
All right. Board member reports. Jan.
No. I really don't have anything to report. Oh, I did go to the new school. It's beautiful.
Hey.
Absolutely beautiful.
Good. Liz?
I don't have anything to report.
Carla? All right. I gave my one report during the treasury discussion. Future agenda items? Carla? None? Liz?
No, Diego still has mine pending from last time, so I'm good.
Jan?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
All right. The next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is Tuesday, December 15th.
Yeah.
All right. So no other business being before the board. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:42.
I'll do a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All opposed? 4-0. Good night, everyone.
Good
Good night,
night.
Rob.
Oh, man.
You gonna kill it?
Give me just 1 second here. Let's see here, end screen. I gotta do it multiple times. End screen. End screen. Oh, and then I'll